have a very large donor, 6 figures, multi-year donor. He made his money in the stock market and is a believer in the power of market growth to generate wealth. Anyway, he recently gifted us a significant size stock donation with the condition that we hold the stock for a certain amount of time without liquidating. Should the stock decline in the time between gift and liquidation, he told us that he would make another donation to make us whole. Our investment policy requires us to liquidate and reinvest the stock. And our gift acceptance policy does not allow these types of restrictions or mandates from donors. To complicate this, he has joked with me in the past about wanting to teach our investment advisors how to hedge. If we follow our policies, we will most likely lose a large gift and a longtime donor. Is there a way to go about this that keeps the donor happy and meets prudent policy standards and guidelines? Can we make a one-time exception to put a temporary hold on the sale of stock?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. This made me so happy when this one.
Can't you picture it though? Can't you picture this donor?
Oh yeah. I think what I like about this question so much is this. I have never heard this before. Like this has never come up with anybody I've ever worked with, or none of the nonprofits I've worked for. Like this is the first time I've ever heard this one.
Right.
Which
me
is
too.
Awesome.
Yeah, me too.
So which is to say that in my opinion, this is probably such a narrow. The number of people for whom this is going to apply is probably the person that asked.
I know, but hey, for the rest of you listening, still listen, because hey, maybe you're going to get this donor trying to control when you sell the gift of stock. So
let's. I think where I want to start is investment policies, like what investment policies are. So when you have a nonprofit that's big enough to have some money salted away, the best practice recommendation from pretty much everybody is that you need to have some rules about how that money is going to be invested. And there are really 2 reasons for this. One is so that whoever your internal staff member is for managing this doesn't get like just thrown directly into the incinerator, because there are so many investment management people out there. Every old lady with a trust fund has an investment guy, and they're always trying to, at least in the bigger nonprofits, they're always trying to get you to move your investments over to their investment business. Like, so you're constantly being barraged by salespeople who are telling you that this is great, this is great, this is great, this is great. And by having an investment policy that your board has approved, then you get to sort of claim, well, those are the rules. Like, I only follow the rules, and that way you never get in trouble. So if the policy is written in such a way and the investments are following the policy and the market tanks and you were exposed to the market in such a way that that's what the policy said you were supposed to do, but you lost a bunch of money, like the CFO doesn't get fired because you're protected by a board policy. So that's one. Number 2 is that, like this scenario here, like people on your board have crazy ideas about how investments should work. Like I certainly have an opinion, and no one's asked, so I won't tell people what my opinion is, but it's pretty vanilla about how you should manage nonprofit investments. I think personally that boards are way more conservative than they need to be, because they think, this isn't my money, and we're taking money out of the food. We're keeping kids from their cancer treatments if we screw this up, which is like, okay, you should keep that in mind when you create your policy. But I think probably we lean a little bit too far that direction and sort of leave money on the table by being way too conservative for stuff like that. But that's just me. I also don't think, anyway, no one asked. No one wants your opinion, Andy. So let's keep going with the question then. In this scenario, you have a donor who feels very strongly that the thing that made him a ton of money is also going to make your nonprofit a ton of money, which I like that. I like that fire. I like that this person is committed to his way of thinking. So in this scenario, what we're really up against is what's stronger, a very large 6-figure multi-year donor or an investment policy. Like when you have what's the old question, like an immovable object against an irresistible force, like what happens? because that's the scenario that we've put together here, is like, do we bend the policy or do we tell the donor, sorry, we have a policy? I think in this scenario, I would look for a workaround.
Yes.
that doesn't do either of those things, because I don't want to open the door as the CFO. I don't want to open the door to anybody in their crazy crackpot theory of, well, you should just put it all in platinum or, whatever they decide is the thing of the day. Right. Because they're going to be wrong. And then you're in trouble because you didn't do what the policy said, right? That you made an exception for the policy in this one case. So the worker, and also you just don't want to make donors mad. But you also, on the other hand, don't want to be pushed around by your donors. No. You don't want them to, we say that all the time. Don't give your donors the opportunity to put restrictions in place that you're not willing to accept. And for this one, it feels like this is it's on the border. Cause it's not like this person's telling us not to spend money on something or telling us to create a new program. They're just telling us to bend our investment policy, which doesn't feel quite as horrible.
It doesn't. And especially when the person said, gosh, if you follow my strategy and it doesn't work, I'm going to make you whole. Now, granted, I know that's you're hoping that's honest, but it doesn't feel like it's coming from a malicious place. It truly comes from how can we get you the most out of this?
Yeah. So here's what I would propose is my third way is this guy's got enough money. If he doesn't have a donor advised fund, he can probably get one. So in this case, what he can do is he can find a donor advised fund that's willing to do whatever he's recommending, whatever this specific basket of stocks that he wants to be held for a particular period of time. I know that all of the major investment houses have very inexpensive donor advised funds that let you invest in anything. Basically, there's no restrictions on what they can be invested in. And so what that person would do then is just move that money into the donor advised fund, keep it invested the way he wants, and he's in charge of the liquidation. So he can wait however long it is before that stock gets liquidated, because and then at the end of that period, he can liquidate the stock himself and give you the cash or send you the stock shares. That's donor advised funds are allowed to do that too, move the stock shares over to you. And because of your policies, it sounds like you would liquidate them, which in many cases would be the smarter thing to do, because then if it's in the donor advised fund already, the capital gains is going to matter. So it doesn't make any difference whether or not it gets liquidated or not. But that way he can sort of do his own thing and it's not violating your policy because he still has control of the cash. And at the same time, rather than, so the other side of it is he will then make a pledge to you for whatever the value is at the time, that thing that he said he's going to make whole later. And the pledge is, here's a pledge for $5 million or whatever it is, payable 5 years from now. You can do that. And then that way it hits your revenue, so that you're not worried about, you in this scenario, I suspect the development team is also yelling at you because if you tell him no, that's all this money we're not going to get. Exactly. So if you do that, then the pledge hits revenue for this year. So your revenue goals look great. He's happy because you're not liquidating it. You're happy because you didn't have to poke a hole in the investment policy. The donor's happy because, and I can think of one reason why he wouldn't want you to liquidate it immediately is say that this is his company. And if he liquidates it immediately, that turns into an internal stock sale. And then it'll look like he's got an insider trade to sell stock, which may make his stock price go down in a time that he doesn't want it to go down. So there may be other investment reasons that he doesn't want it liquidated immediately, but he doesn't want it in his portfolio. So by transferring it in whole to the donor advised fund, he doesn't trigger the cashing out of those shares. So, there may be other things that I'm not thinking of because it's kind of a complicated scenario, but I feel like that donor advised fund intermediary is sort of a perfect scenario for this specific weird question.
And with the donor advised fund intermediary, then the donor would get the immediate tax deduction if for whatever reason that is part of what's playing into this. And so that helps serve the purpose for that piece of it too. So no, that's a brilliant idea, Andy. And I love that you didn't say no on this, because when I looked at this question, I thought, gosh, is this just a flat out no? And it goes I think it also goes to the point of sometimes investment policies, gift acceptance policies, all this stuff get written with the best of intentions, but there's sometimes like almost needs to be I don't know. I know people are going to cringe. Lawyers are going to cringe when I say this, but is there like an out, like in certain unique circumstances, like some of these rules, because you also don't want to violate your own policy. That's not good governance. But usually you either want to write the policies in a way that are broad enough to allow you some flexibility, or that have like a procedure if there is some unique circumstance that could not have been planned.
Yeah. And for any of the policies like that, for the gift acceptance policy or the investment policy, it's generally smarter to not make them hard and fast rules and to always leave yourself an out.
Yeah, like
It's
guidelines.
in most situations, the policy of the food bank is to do this. The policy of the nonprofit is to do this. So that you could just say, like, the other thing is like real estate. Like, you, in general, you do not want a real estate. You don't want anybody to give you real estate ever. Like, there's almost no scenario in which accepting a gift of real estate is a smart idea. But there might be. You never know. Like, it could be like, what we really need is we need a house over there. And like somebody's like, hey, I've got a house to donate you. And then you're like, oh man, but my gift acceptance policy says I can't do real estate. So you're going to put like, it is generally blah, blah, we don't do this, right? So you can lean on it when you need to, but if you're not like breaking it to poke a hole in it to do this one-off thing. But then you have to, there has to be some guidelines and rules around how you evaluate it. So you would have to put that in the policy, is that in order to do this, we would evaluate it and we would do X, Y, Z. You could even say something like we would reach out to a third party appraiser, blah, 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 so which gives you an out. Then you can say to the appraiser, like, can you tell me no?
Right.
Right. A gift and acceptance policy says we could if the appraiser says it's a good idea, but I don't want it. So tell me no.
Right.
And then that'll be the official thing. And then we'll say, nope, the appraiser said no.
Nonprofit governance.
Nonprofit answers.
Nonprofit board.
Nonprofit management.
Nonprofit marketing.
Nonprofit resources.
Welcome to Nonprofit Everything, the podcast where hosts Andy Shurick and Stacey Wedding answer your questions about all things nonprofit.
Hey there, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Nonprofit Everything. This is, 200 plus episodes. We have done 200 episodes over the last 8 years. And gosh, I feel like we need some applause in the background, Andy. So if you want to loop that in when you do the sound check. Anyway, thank you all for always being a part of this with us. Whether you're a new listener or you've been with us since the very beginning, we're always so grateful and thankful for you. And in case you don't know who this is Stacey Wedding, co-host of the podcast, with my fabulous fellow host, Andy Shurick. And you're in for a treat for another good episode packed with amazing questions that we got from all of you. So enjoy it. And here's to celebrating 200 plus episodes and 8 years. I think that makes us old.
Stacey, this one is clearly for you. Recently, we had a consultant we work with seem shocked when we told them we bring potential board candidates to our board meeting and then elect them during the meeting. Is there something wrong with that?
Oh dear, yes. And no wonder your consultant was shocked, because I'm feeling pretty shocked too. No, I'm sorry.
Shocked is the right...
Right? Like,
Yeah.
Does that make you just cringe a little, Andy?
Yes. Even I know that.
So I just want you to, like, as the person who wrote this, and I know we're kind of joking and teasing with you, but like, I want you to think about from the flip side. So you go into a board meeting that right there, while you're in the meeting, like, they're talking about you and then voting on whether you're going to be a part of it. First of all, do you actually think that anyone is going to vote against you publicly in that meeting? Like, absolutely not. So that's the biggest that's one of the problems with it, is just from a standpoint of, like, being able to properly do like the due diligence and kind of like the the screening of a board member and having a process, and then like having the board, certainly you could having the board actually talk candidly about, or a nominating or governance committee recommend a candidate, but you want to be able to talk openly as a board and have, some confidentiality around that conversation, and not feel pressured to vote a certain way because the candidate's in the room, and it's awkward and uncomfortable for you. Like, think if you were there, like you're just sitting there, like this is like hey, am I getting like, what's that TV show? There's some like, whatever, is it American Idol? I don't know, whatever. It's one of these things, right? Where they like sit there and they're like voting yes or no. And the judges are there voting on the singer on stage or whatever that show is like that. What show is that, Andy? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, there's like 5 of them, and they're all exactly like that.
That just shows how much I don't watch TV. But you all who are listening can laugh and tell me what show I'm trying to think of. But you know what I'm talking about. Those 3 judges, and they like whip around in their chairs, and they give you the vote or no vote to move forward. It's like that same feeling, except you're in a boardroom. And it's just really like, it's not only not appropriate for like from a board kind of just due diligence standpoint and protocol standpoint, but it's just super uncomfortable, and you don't want that situation. And then it's like, hey, great, you're on the board now. Like, let's jump on to your meeting. I don't know, like there's no orientation. Like the whole point of doing this well is having like a process, right? Where you actually try to recruit for the best candidate, and you only have so many open seats. And so you want to find somebody who's the right fit. And then, you bring whatever recommendations to the full board. And that might mean you as a potential board candidate don't make it to a recommendation because for whatever reason, you're not the right match, or maybe, vice versa. Maybe you're not crazy about the organization during the screening process. You learn things that you go, oh, this board work is way harder than I thought. So like, it's all about like the process, and sort of really kind of like what you would do with a job candidate. Like you're taking them through to make sure you've got the highest quality or the best fit for the role. And so that requires some rigor around not only process, but just making it be a positive experience for you from the get-go. So I've also heard of boards who say to someone like, you're at the board meeting and you're a board candidate, and then they say, okay, go step out for like 5 minutes while we talk about you, and then you come back in. It's the same. It's no different. It's really just not the way to do it. So a board should have that discussion and that vote without you in the room. You should get a call after the fact, or whatever the protocol the organization uses to let you know you've been voted on, and then to say, great, let's schedule your orientation, and we're so excited to have you, and here, let's do some onboarding. And so anyway, that's I don't have enough words. So yes, your consultant is not crazy for being shocked. It's just not a positive experience to handle it that way. I don't know. That's my 2 cents. Andy, any other things to add?
I think I have some questions for you though. So I'm trying to come up with why this scenario would happen. And I can't imagine it. It really is like, we just think they'd be nice. And so they show up and we just say yes. And so they have no vetting process or no process at all. Maybe like that's the way this would work. So I'm curious. So in your opinion, then, even for a small baby organization, like what are the steps? What should an organization that needs a new board member do, and in what order, and how long should it all take? Like, what's the right way to do this?
Yeah. Okay. So the right way to do it, and I do think it looks maybe slightly different for size of organization, but the right way to do it would be, okay, we as a board are going to think strategically about where our organization's headed, what skills, what contacts, what do we need from to make this board as diverse in all forms of diversity and as representative of kind of the community we serve, and people who can actually help us with what we need help on. So beyond governance, a small baby nonprofit or working board needs somebody who maybe is willing to roll up their sleeves and has expertise in a particular area, like whatever, maybe it's marketing, maybe it's HR. You see that all the time with the tiny nonprofits that don't have enough staff, right? So they're like, we need board members who not only are governing, but we also need working board members. And so the step, though, regardless of size, is to say, like, where are we at this point, and what do we need over the next coming years? What would help benefit us the most, and how do we also have some, I think there's really a trend going on out there right now about representation on boards, because imagine if you are the one being served by this organization and you look and at the board and nobody looks like you, right? Or maybe you're really like, maybe the organization helps serve, I don't know, college age or young adult students, but you see everyone on the board is, a senior citizen. You're kind of like, wow, the decision-making authority lies in the hands of all these people who maybe don't understand my reality. And so the lived experience piece is another piece that I think is really nationally, we're starting to see some more conversations about that than ever before, which is positive. Anyway, I just went way too long on that one piece. But so thinking right about what kind of composition, what do we need our board to look like to get us to where we're trying to go is where it starts. And then how are we going to recruit? So are we going to look at, some of the baby nonprofits tend to just go look at who are their friends and colleagues. I am not a huge fan of that because we tend to attract like people. So there's some, there's board match boards that are out there. There are like on LinkedIn, you can do a really cool post. You can do stuff on your social media. Hey, we're looking for board members. Here's what you need to know. So that's like the next step, right? Is starting to, but before you do that, what are we expecting of our board, right? Like, so what are the expectations of a board member? Like, how many board meetings a year do we have? What kind of time commitment? Because if I'm going to join your board, I want to know, what does this look like for me? Like, how much time am I talking? Is it a once a month meeting that's 2 hours, or is it quarterly for half a day, or what is it? And then do I have, is there committee service? So sort of that the expectations unique to that organization. Do I have to make a personal gift, and what size? Do I have to fundraise, right? All those kinds of things. And so that gets wrapped up. So this isn't a perfect world, right? And then there's a process where once it gets sent out into the universe to try to recruit, then you have some sort of a process that someone is looking at the interest forms. I think an interest form is a great place, not quite like an application, like if you were applying for a job, but an interest form that has a handful of questions and has some of the basic, why do you want to join our board? Like, have you served on other boards before? Has some basic questions. And then you've got a small little committee on the board. It could be a couple people. It could be, if it's a larger board, more people who actually review these. And then there is some sort of a conversation. In an ideal world, I think there should be two types of conversations, right? But the reality is, a small baby nonprofit's like, I'm desperate for board members. So if you needed to make it quicker, maybe it's just one kind of almost like I like to say conversation, not interview, right? Because I feel like both parties need to be quote interviewing each other. Like, I think that you can't go in acting like you are the end all be all, you've got all the power. So does the candidate, and they get to ask questions too. And so I think it's a conversation just to see about what are motivations. Do they understand realistically what work on this board looks like, what it means? And then from there, then it goes forward to maybe a formal nomination process of, we've vetted these 3 people. We think these 2 are the best suited. We think this other one would be great to start on a committee. I mean, that's another thing I love seeing, is if there's a way for an organization to start people on a committee first, to kind of groom them and see if they're committed before actually joining the actual full board. It's a great sort of middle ground before you get married, right? Like, it's like the dating before getting married. So that's all that's the perfect way to do it. And, I certainly think you can make some of this some of these steps a little simpler, but absolutely what you don't want is just to have no process, which you're right. It's probably what created this. Have someone just come to a board meeting and everyone be like, yeah, cool, right? Like you're on the board because Andy, you've seen it. Like when that happens, sometimes you end up with a nightmare situation of a really difficult person or someone that had completely different ulterior motives that aren't to benefit the mission. And it's a lot harder to get rid of them than it is to do this process from the outset.
Yeah. And board construction of the board is something that doesn't get probably enough attention because it feels like something you kind of have to do. And there are really formulaic ways of doing it that I don't see it quite as much as I used to, but we used to see, we need a bunch of elected officials because that's the conduit to be able to get money from the city, the county, state, whatever. And then we need people from certain corporations in town because that's the conduit to get that corporate money. And then, right. So you'd put your board together based on sort of their fundraising ability for specific activities, that's not the point of a board, right? The point of a board is to be able to help the organization in a different way. Fundraising is certainly a piece of it, but it's not the only thing that you should be considering. So, but the speed dating, just show up and we're married. Like that doesn't seem like a smart idea either. It's something that you need to think about. But again, like we say with all this stuff, it's just more work. It feels like for a lot of these things that we talk about, like the right way is the hard way. So Stacey and Andy's recommendation is always, well, you just got to do it the hard way. That's how life is. That's what you pick nonprofits. It's the hard way. That's what you get.
But here's what I so resonate with that. I get that, right? And because maybe I have seen so many of the horror stories of people who didn't have that process set up right at the beginning and the amount of time, energy, and just morale suck that happens, right? Suck the organization dry from a really difficult board member because they didn't have a process in place. And I'm not saying a process is the end all be all. It's like hiring an employee. Sometimes someone can perform perfectly and it's still a crapshoot. But the reality is you sort of lower your odds, right? Like you lower the chances of that happening, which is what we're trying to do with a process. And would you just give would you give your prized possession? Would you give, your newborn to a complete stranger? You wouldn't. And so we need to think about this is an organization who we're protecting, the assets and protecting everything that exists about this organization. We have to do that with care. So I'm all about suck it up, folks. And on the front end, spend the time and you will be thankful on the back end.
Thanks for joining us. We know you're busy because we're busy and we're not doing all the stuff you're doing. So we're happy that you've maybe this is a commuting respite and you can listen to other people's problems. Maybe that's why you listen to the podcast. Wow, I'm glad that's not my problem. My nonprofit's way better than that. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Send your questions to us. Easiest way is where the show notes are as well, which is nonprofiteverything.com. There's a button you can click that says ask a question. I'll say many of our questions come from that button, so that's a good way to do it. We say we're on the socials, but I think I'm going to actually tell people what we're on because you might not find us. We have a presence on Blue Sky, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. So those are the three places that you can send a question to us. You can DM a question to us there and we can get it. We also have a Discord server that doesn't get a whole lot of traction, to be honest. But if you send something there, you post something there, we will see that immediately and we will add that to the questions list as well. If there's a social you think we should be on that we're not, that isn't run by Nazis, let us know because we'll add that one. And with that, thanks again for joining us and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.